Hey there, everybody, and welcome to the Dubai Marathon 2017. I'd like to introduce you to one of the most spectacular marathon courses in the world, one that has been inaugurated back in 2004, if I'm not wrong, and it has been popularized by the great Haile Gebrselassie, of course. This is the marathon route. It goes all the way down along the Palm Jumeirah and back. Then you go across the Dubai College. After 10K, you pass the Medellin Jumeirah, Bulchar Arab, Jumeirah Beach Hotel, and this goes all the way down to the Burj Khalifa, from where you're gonna return right back at the Union House and then back right to the starting area. It's a long course, but there are many humps on the road which are probably made for stopping the cars from speeding too much, and those bumps kind of hinder you to just roll automatically. You have to stay focused not to step on these bumps. Here's the mass race, including Kenenisa Begele, Tsegay Mekonnen, Dino Sefers Selema, Tamira Tola, Mula Wazihun, Abera Kuma, Solomon de Sisa, Rajiv Asefa, and Chele de Shasa, among the many great athletes right here in Dubai. It always seems like the Ethiopian Championships, because most of the invited runners are usually from Ethiopia, even though there have been plenty of Kenyan winners in the past, but lately in the last few years, it's only been Ethiopians winning the race. Now it's up to Kenenisa Bekele whether he can win this wonderful race with the greatest prize money in the world, with $100,000, and whether he can improve his PR of 2:05 from the Paris Marathon, a course record that still stands to this day. Oh, Abdelhadi El Hashimi, a guy I know from the Düsseldorf Marathon, a super fast Belgian runner who's already around the 40s. Daniel Rotich from Uganda, and there you have it. Only one Kenyan, Amos Kipruto. Well, that's impossible to keep up with the many Ethiopians in this field, so most probably there won't be another Kenyan win. So, where was I? At Kenenisa Bekele. Will he be able to improve his PR? Will he be able to win this fantastic race? I've been hearing rumors in the past by some people who have claimed that the Dubai Marathon, even before Tokyo became a major marathon major, and we have the elite starting field of the women. We had the In the past, we had the Tokyo Marathon becoming one of the world marathon majors, and now some people are saying Dubai is going to be next. Well, I'm not sure whether that's going to be true, because we are still missing a few thousands of runners. There are only around 3 to 5, 6,000 runners, and there are many races in this world which are having 3 to 15 or 20,000 runners and are still not considered a major marathon. So among many which I know, Hamburg, Frankfurt, many other races, even Athens, and many races in Japan, which hold more starters than just 10 to 15,000. So we'll see whether in the future the Dubai Marathon can make it, but most probably induced by some, by some financial help of the many sheikhs over there. So the interesting exciting thing about the Dubai Marathon is, of course, that you are starting out in the dark when it's still cool outside, the light breeze. It almost feels like it's cold, chilly outside, similar to the Mumbai Marathon, which is of course a little bit hotter, and it starts a little bit earlier, around 1.5 hours earlier. The Dubai Marathon used to start at 5:30 in the morning in the past, but they have changed that to 7:30, is to 7 a.m. and now I think it's back to 6:30. I'm not sure, but however, there you have the elite runners, the men's field packed up with the women's field all in the front. There you have the only Kenyan out there, Rotich, the Belgium El Hashimi, Abdelhadi El Hashimi, Tsegay Mekonnen. They're all ready to go. And as I remember from my run in 2014, the thing is that the weather is warming up pretty fast and you don't have time at all to escape the heat. So this means this course was deemed to be a world record course, but it never was the case. It is a very fast course, but due to these temperatures which are rising so pretty fast, it's almost impossible to run any kind of record in here. Even a personal record is only possible to very few. So I think the exciting thing is that at around 1 hour into the race, or 1:30 hour into the race, you can already feel that it's heating up. So this means even the elite marathoners who would run a 2-hour marathon don't have the time to escape the upcoming heat. So they have at least 30 to 50 minutes of racing at slightly raised temperatures where it's already getting humid, and it's tough to escape that scorching sun and to keep maintaining the high speed which they usually used to go out here in Dubai. And in the past we already had world record attempts by Haile Gebrselassie, who wanted to break the world record, and he has been offered a prize money of $125,000, which he missed with the 2:04:59, if I'm not wrong. I can't quite remember, but it's however been the year of his world record in Berlin, where he ran a 2:04:26 exactly, and in Dubai he ran a 2:04:55, right. In the next year he tried again, but it was raining very hard and he slowed down to 2:05, and the year after that he won for the third time with a 2:06. So Haile was close to the world record at that time, and even there the gun goes off, everybody's pushing and shoving themselves up to get as quickly as possible to the front to make some room and to let the legs fly. I can exactly remember the atmosphere of this marathon back when I couldn't sleep at all. I was just sleeping for 20-30 minutes that night. I was so excited. This marathon race was so fantastic, and actually it was supposed to be my fastest marathon ever, but I failed because it was very hot. And as I said, after 2 hours the sun is scorching, and if you're a sub 3 hour runner, 2:40, you will run at least 90 minutes in the sun and you will be baked and shaked and caked. So no chance for PRing, but however I was pretty satisfied as the fastest Romanian and German at that time with the 2:47:30. Yes, it was a good result at that time, back at a time when my PR was still at 2:44, but shortly after I improved that to 2:41. Now let's get back to the race, and as I told you, they used to start out at a very quick first kilometer in Dubai. They usually go up very fast over the first 10 kilometers, not because they know, I'm sure, not because they know that it's getting hotter later, because it's the wrong strategy anyway. You have to save the energy for the later tougher miles. But the thing is that they are having the illusion that this might lead to a world record run and race, because this course allows you to do so, but the weather certainly does not. So let's see, we are already 2 minutes into the race, and I'm sure the camera will switch right over to the elite field. As you can see, you can already see the back of the field, because there are not that many runners. There are only 3,000 to 5,000 marathoners. I can only speak for my race. There was 3,000, and I think it got a little bit bigger over the years. I haven't followed the numbers yet, because this is a race from 2017, and I'm telling you honestly, today we got 2021. This year the race didn't take place, but it will most certainly, I'm sure, next year. So here they are, into the race, 2:45, 2:46. We are approaching the first kilometer, and I hope the camera team of the United Arab Emirates will show us the split of the first kilometer after having showed this beautiful impressions of the start in the dark, which is something very, very good mentally for the runners, to at least start out mentally soothed and not being in any fear of the upcoming struggles and heat, which are gonna catch you anyway later throughout the race. So here we are. The Ethiopian block of fans is cheering. As I remember, for 2014 there were many Ethiopian fans who just came there from Addis Ababa. Right here it looks darker than it actually is. As I remember, you could already see the sun going up on the horizon, and the fog was clearing up at the time. And these fans are truly amazing, because they are cheering with drums and all yelling and singing and cheering for their Ethiopian male and female top elite athletes who have trained for so many years and coached by expertise and very well trained legends. There you go, the first kilometer, 2:56, as I told you, very fast, but it's already 4 seconds behind the world record pace. But the comparison alone shows you that these guys always aim at the world record when they start in Dubai, which might consider good and bad at the same time, but they already try to compare this to world record, meaning they are attempting it. So in the minute when you are seeing such a split chart of the world record evolving, you know that these guys are eyeing for a world record attempt, such as is the case right here in Dubai. However, I don't know whether this was particularly set for Bekele, but maybe yes. I don't know exactly what his training shape was back at the time in 2017. I know what happened, but I don't know how good his shape actually was, and whether he was capable of attacking the world record, which was back at the time standing at the 2:02:57, if I'm not wrong, by Dennis Kimetto back in 2017, which was then broken by Kipchoge and 2018, if I'm not wrong. Yes, the Kimetto world record was standing. So 2:02:57 was within reach for many of these athletes, because some of these athletes have been having PRs of around the 2:03. We had a stellar field right here in this beautiful city of Dubai, in Bekele, who had a 2:05 PR at the time. But he was certainly capable of more than that, and he was certainly aiming for a PR right at this very race. So we have already passed the second kilometer. I'm still waiting for the split of the second kilometer while we are struggling to see the athletes because yeah, the conditions of the light are very, very tough to see through because the cameras cannot catch the actual light that is on scene right there. So the second kilometer was pretty fast. It was 2:52, and we are now only 1 second behind the world record at 5:47. But I, of course, cannot imagine that this kind of pace can be kept up until later into the race because, as I said, the sun will come up. The athletes will start to feel a certain change in their body, and this will make them feel more tense. And at that very moment, it's all about maintaining the speed. And at the moment when you're already starting to not fight but to intentionally maintain the speed, you are already losing more power, because if something doesn't go automatically, if you're just rolling the first half without having to focus on the time, then you are just rolling good and you're feeling good. But if you are already eyeing at the watch and you're realizing that you have to stay sharp as a knife and 100% focused, you have to put something in mentally. And that fact alone of putting in some mental energy into that process of thinking in order to stay sub your target pace, that alone is costing you some strength, physical strength, and that's leading to the point where from that point on, you're gonna just slowly start to lose energy, and you're of course can compensate that up to a certain point, but most certainly not beyond 30k, because at that point you can only recompensate some of your inner strength if you are running a cool race on the perfect conditions, and not here in Dubai. There you go, the third kilometer, once again 2:52. The world record pace was 2:59, so we are right 7 seconds under the world record pace, which is brilliant, of course. But I am, of course, absolutely curious for how long they can keep up this wonderful splits. I remember from many races in Dubai that they have been starting out at the fantastic world record split pace, and it never happened. It never happened. I don't know exactly, but it always failed before the halfway point. So I'm curious whether they can keep up a 1:01:30 half marathon pace up to the half marathon point. We'll see, but for now we're into the fourth kilometer. The first leading pack, they're all steered together. The best of them, which we have seen in the starting list at the beginning of the transmission of this broadcast, which is of course being brought by British speakers, which is very nice to hear, because the United Arab Emirates have some anchormen from Great Britain over there who are covering the races, and which is of course very good to have people around the world understanding the coverage of the race. In my case, I'm just covering this for fun, for myself, as an exercise for my journalism studies, in case you're wondering why I'm doing this. And of course to let the people pay more attention to my channel on YouTube, because I'm really intending to hopefully maybe become a journalist, and maybe I will cover a race as was planned for the Cyprus Marathon. As I said, I'm the Cyprus Marathon ambassador. I was invited last year to cover the race, but it all failed due to Corona. Now we're approaching the 4th kilometer mark, and we're still at world record pace. And now you can already see in the cameras the light in the back. The sun is coming up slowly, but at this point you are in Dubai, of course, having already a better view than these cameras have. So even though these cameras are, of course, very, very expensive and perfect, brilliant technology, but your eyes are still seeing something different than these cameras from my experience. Not only my experience in general, but my experience in Dubai itself back in 2014. So it was not the same course as this one, but it was exactly the same path. So first I'm gonna tell you this is 4th time 2:52. Again, they are 5 seconds sub world record pace. They're still faster than the world record pace, and we're gonna see, because if this stays up like this, we're gonna have a few men struggling, which are not up to the task, which are not up to a 3 minute per K pace and faster, which do not have a PR of such a level, and who maybe just can keep up to a certain point, maybe 30 kilometers, but that already would have these guys going to the limit. So we will have quite early spread of the leading group, I think, as I said, ahead of the halfway point, because the temperatures will start to rise as soon as the sun comes up. As soon as the sun is shining onto these athletes, there will be a change, a slight change, but certainly there will be a change. So where was I? Back in 2014, yes, we are approaching the 5th kilometer. Back in 2014, the course was slightly other than this, not different, but other. You didn't start out from the starting field up and then to the left, to the western direction, but you went out to the eastern direction. So let me quickly get into the first 5K split, 14:20. That's a fantastic but way too fast split by Abera Kuma, who is now 7 seconds ahead of this pack, this main chasing pack. He's all alone out there. Bekele is already 7 seconds behind, with all the other athletes challenging and following this guy. So let us see for how long he can keep up with this particular pace, because this is hell of a pace. This is even sub Kipchoge's present world record pace of around 14:34, if I'm not wrong. You see the field is already starting to spread, even though the weather was still okay at the time. So this is all due to the fact that they just pushed out and whipped out, reaching for a world record pace, which is, unfortunately, I have to say, honestly, after so many years, the coaches will have to learn from the mistakes of the other athletes in the past, and they should tell them not to do so. But however, the money is calling. 15 seconds sub world record pace. Yeah, if somebody who doesn't have a clue about marathon running would watch this race and just follow the numbers, he would say, oh yeah, that's great, that's good, that's gonna most probably lead to a world record. But this is certainly not the case, because the faster you're going out and starting out with a bigger gap, the more you're gonna fail. That's more than certain. You have to keep an even pace close to the target pace that is customized to the actual circumstances of the race day. of not only the course but also the weather and everything else that has to be readjusted again and again and again. Even a day before the race, if you're feeling like this, like a world record man, you will still have to adjust your race pace on race day if the weather is changing, even if you're feeling perfect. And it would be just a mistake not to do so, because you would fail not even making the world record, but you might even fail winning the race. You might fail running a good time. You might just DNF the race just due to some muscle failure and struggle, because the body is not used to a certain stress when the circumstances do not allow your body to do so. And this is certainly in combination with the weather. Here seeing the leading woman for the first time, which have or also started at the same time as the man, because some of the marathon majors are having a different start, such as in New York. They have a different starting time, the women, and the men are going out later with the mass race. So 18 minutes into the race, let's see the next split at 6K should be shown to us real soon, even though it still seems quite dark at the moment. But let me reassure you, these athletes by now are no longer feeling the cool breeze they have felt at the start. They are now hot, warmed up with a 2:55 into the race with just a world record pace inside, still on target. Well, the total gap is not to be shown. You're only having the gap of the of the single kilometers, and we've been collecting a lot of seconds there, which is only showing you the single kilometer gap. So I'm very curious to see the actual comparison to the world record, which would be at the latest at the halfway point, where I can compare the true world record by Kimetto, in that case 2:02:57, and have us aiming at a time around 1:01:20 to 1:01:40, because there have actually been athletes who have astonishingly managed to run a negative split over this course here in Dubai, which is of course in itself a masterpiece, a piece of art, because the negative split in itself is not just a major effort over the second half, because you have to maintain the pace of the first half by putting in more energy into that second half. It sounds so simple, but it's a very, very sophisticated process, which is mentally tormenting you up by kilometer 28 at the latest, when you're hitting the wall mentally and physically, sometimes just slightly, but the mental barrier is even tougher. And then at the moment, as I said, when you realize the point that there is a big deal to struggle, you are certainly gonna pay a physical toll for that process, and that's gonna lead up to a loss of speed, even if it's just a slight loss of 1 or 2 or 3 seconds per kilometer. It's a lot when you are aiming at a certain Swiss clock paced target pace, leading up to a certain PR or a world record, a national record. You are not allowed to lose anything else than tenths of seconds, because as soon as you are in the minus, as soon as you are losing time, it's very, very tough to make up lost time in a marathon, which doesn't mean that you have to go all out fast like the Kenyans did in the past and like many athletes, elite athletes do. Up to 90% of them go out too fast. This has changed slightly in the last 3-4 years as I'm following the elite runners, but in the past it was disastrous, and the athletes ran fabulous times, but their splits were horrible. They ran a 101, 102, and then they went back home stretch with a 104, 105. That's a brilliant time, but that's the wrong strategy, and you, in the end, you're losing maybe 1 to 3 minutes. So that is at a 206 or a 207 time. It might be a 204, 205 time. So these guys need great coaches, and there are so many great athletes out there, and I think that might be one of the reasons that there is not as many great coaches as there are elite athletes in the world. So there you go. There you have the direct comparison of the world record pace, 18 seconds ahead of the world record. That is fantastic. We had a 2:53 over the 7th kilometer. That is brilliant. Again, they are really maintaining that hard effort. They are maintaining the sub-world record pace. And I'm trying to find Bekele in the field. There he goes, with those neon pink yellow Nike Zoom Streak, flying it. Yes, it's not easy to just tell right away, because it's 4 years into the past and we are now at the Vaporflies and Alphaflies. So it's very interesting to cover this race 4 years in retrospect, and having in mind all the other athletes that have been running at that time, and because it's changing so fast nowadays, they're coming new elite athletes. And another 2:54, the slowest kilometer by now has been the first of 2:56 and down to 2:52, now the 8th in 2:54. They're still leading with at least a gap of 20 to 21 seconds ahead of the world record. Now it's going to be real interesting for how long they're going to keep this, because sometimes it's not the thing that I'm happy for how long they can keep up this brilliant pace, because I know exactly deep in myself that this is going to lead to a catastrophe. We're not going to see a stellar race as intended, because they're going to lose tremendously of the second half due to such a brilliant first half. So let us all be excited to see the first halfway split. Even though we still got a long way to go, we don't even have covered quarter of the race. We're right here at 25 minutes, approaching the first quarter of the race at 10.55k, but it's still 2 to 3 kilometers to go, and have to be patient. That's what it's all about. Even if you're a runner, not only a spectator. When you're a spectator, you don't feel the pain. You're just excited and feel the thrilling emotion that is going on right there. But as an athlete, you have to be patient. You don't have to kick too early. These guys, excuse me that I'm being too objective, but they have already spoiled this race, because they are running at a brilliant pace of a 30k race, or maybe a half marathon race, but not a marathon race, and not to the circumstances that have been allowed by this weather and this race, and certainly not by the quality of the athletes we are having in this field, which doesn't mean that they are not brilliant. But if I would have had this race in 2021 with some different names in it, I might have seen and viewed this whole situation differently, because of course it would also depend on the weather. But if we had the quality of the athletes who might run a 202 something, then I would deem this split of a 202 pace to be okay, even though that's already risky. But these athletes have been running 203, 205s, and they are rolling around at a 202 pace, which is quite dangerous and more than risky and most certainly deadly. So keep an eye on it. And remember my words, so you will see very soon. Uh, as I said, I don't remember the finishing time of this race. Of course, I know that a world record never fell in Dubai, so that is just slightly helping me to estimate the result as precisely as I'm doing, but most of it, trust me, comes from my experience and not from knowing that this race has been in the past and that I just know what's going on. So here we go. 2:57, the 9th kilometer. Brilliant. They're still 21 seconds ahead of the world record. Well, I can remember from many, many races here in Dubai, which looked just like this up to 18 to 20 kilometers, because at the halfway point already I knew exactly that this pace cannot be kept up. So the weather was almost always beyond 20 degrees Celsius at any race every year, and it was not possible for someone to run a world record over there in these times. Maybe in the past, when the world records were not that attacked that often as they are these days, and there are more athletes training at a certain level than they used to in the past. The density of the top elite runners is more dense than ever before. It's now not only Kenya and Ethiopia, it's also Uganda and Eritrea. Not to forget the Moroccan guys, the Tanzanian guys, the Lesotho guys. There are many, many guys from all over parts of eastern, southeastern regions of the world. And now even some Asian guys coming up with times down to 205. It's going to be quite interesting to follow. So here the major athletes 10 seconds behind Bekele at 10K in 14:33 over the second 5K segment. Well, they're still pretty fast, tremendously fast, still sub present world record pace, which was 2:01:39 by Kipchoge 2018, yes, if I'm not wrong. So the year after this, the year 2017, this is just months before the race by Kipchoge in Monza, where he ran that 2:00:25 and where he first ran in the Vaporfly 4%. So this was the era few days before the prototype of the Vaporfly hit the markets. Such as in my case, I first got hold of the Vaporfly 4% in 2017. In September, I raced the first time in them. So all of the autumn fall races of 2017, all the elite runners have been wearing Vaporflies 4%. In the spring, there were not that many, but because the race only came in May, so the major marathons did not witness that Vaporfly streamliner of many athletes wearing this revolutionizing shoe. So you see the sun is up. It's no longer dark. From now on is pray to the Lord that the sun is going to hit you as late as possible, because even though doesn't feel that hot because you're focused, you're into that element, you're just warming up slowly with the upcoming sun. You are not realizing the actual heat degree up to the point where it's already too late, because at the point where you're realizing the heat, it's already too late, because this is just a signal by the body that is struggle time. And the same goes with drinking. At the point where you realize that you're dehydrated and that you need to drink, it's already too late. You have to sporadically drink regularly, and drink over the entire course of a race at the certain stations, if possible, more, even multiple times than planned. Small sips, even if possible, just to make sure that you are not dehydrating, because your body is going to realize that too late, and then you can no longer make up for the lost liquid. Same goes with the heat. You can no longer cool your body down in a race when you're hot. When you're being hot, you can no longer cool down. So at the point where you're feeling the heat, it's over. I mean, the race is good, it's going on, but your plans and your full focus for a super stellar, brilliant finishing time, and even mentally, the experience is totally different when you're running a cool race where you don't have to mentally struggle that much, because the body, the physical condition can withstand a whole lot more than we think. But the subconsciousness of your body is realizing this, and it is subconsciously taking a toll on your body, and it's just a deterioration of your actual physical form, a slow one at that, but most certainly not as exciting as if you're running a cool race under perfect conditions where you are just feeling perfect up to the very end, even though you've been having and experiencing a slight decrease of pace, which is so minute that you don't actually feel it, which means that you didn't even notice it mentally. So this kind of race is perfect from any point of view. Here we have the women led by Degefa with a 33:37 over 10K. That is also a brilliant split. Of course, far away from Paula Radcliffe's territory, but it is a very good finishing time which they are eyeing, and it's more realistic for them to have a good finishing time than the men's field, who are now already approaching the 12th kilometer, if I'm not wrong. Yes, right there it is, the 12th kilometer. Hope they're showing us the present split and total gap compared to the world record, because I'm still curious for how long they can maintain in that huge gap. Not only the gap or the world record pace itself, but the gap to that world record. Because the bigger the gap, the bigger the downfall, the bigger the destruction of your body will be later on. So there we go. Kilometer 11, 2:58. All the kilometers sub 12, sub 3. 2:52. They're still 12 seconds ahead of world record pace. Well, let's see. No, it's more than 12 seconds. Excuse me. It's just a kilometer gap, as I said. I can have the actual comparison at halfway point, because then I can quickly calculate what's going on. But as I said, we will see whether this pace can be kept up to the half. That would be great. Of course, good for us spectators, because it's a brilliant, exciting. And there you could see such a bump on the road. There are many kind of those bumps. Oh, there's this Madina Jumeirah Hotel right next to the Burj Al Arab, a few hundred meters away. This is on the isle itself, whereas the Burj Al Arab is on a small isle into the ocean. So I can exactly remember this passage right here. They are now starting out into the direction of that Burj Khalifa, which is around 15 kilometers back and forth, or 12 kilometers. And in 2014 it was differently. We started out first into the direction of the Burj Khalifa and then to the other side, to the western part, back to the center of the Burj Al Arab, and then down to the finish line at the police station in the area. So from this perspective you can not see any skyscrapers, just look some regular Arab or other type of country like Egypt, or yeah, there are many Eastern European and Middle Eastern countries which have that pedestrian type of stones with the white and black. Also in India, where I raced the year before this, and you still see the skyscrapers are blinking, still too dark for them, for the air traffic. They're there to signalize the skyscrapers so that the pilots can have an impression of about where they are and of how their exact altitude is when they're seeing the peaks of these brilliant skyscrapers. Well, it's very exciting to see Dubai over and over again. Well, there you go. Wow, 2:54 for the 13th kilometer. We are now 40 seconds ahead of the world record time. Well, this is already way too dangerous. Excuse me, guys, but this is way too dangerous. I think we're gonna witness a very slow second half. Maybe not visible to the normal spectator and not visible to the eye, but it will be visible on the timetable of the second half, and you will most certainly see a big difference, because it's not impossible to keep such a pace regarding the weather and the world record at that time, plus the quality of the athletes themselves. If there would be a 201 runner in this field, I would say, all right, let him do the job, but this is absolutely not the case. They're just thrilled, and I guess some of these athletes are here for the first time in Dubai, so that alone is a kick. It's adrenaline non-stop. It's just pushing you. It's so exciting. If you've never been in Dubai, it's gonna help you mentally, and you're gonna boost you up maybe too much, and that's also lead to the risk that you are not focusing on what's going on and on your actual task and the mission and your target time and the readjustment of the target time, which you should have learned if you have been raised by great coaches, good coaches, and not just coaches who are focusing on records and not on the actual performance and the quality of a race, which has always to be put into perspective and to compared with the weather circumstances. So here we have a nice view in the background, all blurry in the fog, because this fog has still not cleared up, even though the light is shining bright and the sun is soon to be visible, and at that point the fog will have disappeared. But these athletes are already close to 1 hour, and as I said, if they are lucky they can go beyond 1 hour. Oh God, 14th kilometer, 2:57, still 40 seconds ahead of world record pace. Well, I must confess they're doing a brilliant job for entertaining us. Not for themselves, for God's sake, but they're doing a great job. And honestly, if I was watching this race 7, 8, 9 years ago, when I was still unexperienced as a coach, I would have said, wow, this is good. Keep it up, guys. Yeah, way to go. This is it. This is a world record race. But today, I know, and I'm sort of disappointed if I would witness such a race again, but I'm pretty sure that in the future we will not. So this was 2017, we got 2021, and I'm talking about the future ahead, so light years ahead of this race. If we're gonna ever witness these kind of races as they used to be in Dubai, I don't think so, because the coaches do have a lot of responsibility when having such great athletes of such a high quality, and these diamonds need to be polished properly and not just thrown into the arena and just told the prize money charts and the world record charts and all that. You have to teach them something great, not just how the money rolls. Brilliant view of the Medina Jumeirah and the Burj Al Arab here on the left corner. Yes, the most splendid 7-star hotel, the only 7-star hotel in the world, if I'm not wrong. We wanted to visit it, but we had to have an appointment and it was booked at the time, so when the visiting alone was impossible that day when we intended to have a look at it. Would have been nice to enter the facility and to admire the architecture of that inner building, which I have watched many documentaries on how it has been designed and by whom. And however, the Ethiopian fans are in utmost excitement. They are just celebrating and looking forward to their winner, because, as I said, in this field you can only know that your winner is going to come from Ethiopia. Just a matter of who it's going to be, but there are almost 30 top elite runners from Ethiopia. Then you know what's going on, and you know that it's going to be a winner from Ethiopia. So 45 minutes, 15 kilometers into the race, 43:26. Well, that alone is very close to the actual 15K world record of 41 something. Incredible. So there we go. The chase back 9 seconds behind with Wazihun Tamiratola. And I'm looking forward to have that 15 kilometer split to see the total gap of the world record, because you are now already seeing, oh God, they have kept that present world record pace of 14:33. Still unbelievable what they are doing, but because this is indeed a first class, world class half marathon race pace. And you see the top elite field is splitting apart slowly, and the gap is growing bigger and bigger to the follower, to the chase back, which can no longer be seen in the back. At this time we were still having many Adidas world records. Well, almost any record was set by Adidas back at the time. the legs were shining in Adidas, but nowadays it is mostly Nike, even though all the other brands have followed suit and put a bloody carbon fiber plate into their racing shoes just to keep up with Nike. And they did so pretty well, but it's still Nike ruling. And a few world records on the road that have been broken, or let's say many, were mostly broken by Nike and still being held by Nike. You are set by Adidas. So the leading men have already passed 16 kilometers. I'm waiting for the splits because it's very, very nice to see the athletes from the bird's eye view, from the helicopter, from the chopper. Yeah, it is just a piece of work to run 13 to 15 kilometers to one direction and then knowing you have to go all the way back to that point and traverse onto the other side and once again back. Excuse me. So that's something very difficult compared to the Berlin course, for example, to a round course where you're just passing each point once. So I won't have to come back here again. You're just approaching kilometer by kilometer finishing line, and that's all you have to do. Cover the distance, get to the finish. But here you have a long, long way out and back, which is, for some athletes, mentally very challenging. For me, I must say it was okay. Didn't have much of a toll compared to races where you have to run 4 laps of 10.5. Even in that case, I'm not having any issues. In fact, I wasn't having any mental issues in any kind of race course because I'm just like that, and that's maybe one of the reasons why I'm such a successful marathoner for my level. And this is a major factor, having a mental stamina, mental attitude that allows you to go beyond the mental challenges that are awaiting you from different aspects of the game of this marathon race, which has many challenges to offer. Weather, the course, many aspects can disturb and distract your attention from staying focused and roll towards your target pace and towards your finishing time. So here you have a small pack of 9 runners. Small because we are just 50 minutes into the race, but the pace is still from another world, out of this planet. And here we can see Bekele. I guess he started to struggle. As you see, he's no longer having anybody around him, meaning he had to split up to let the chase back go. Yeah, he's now all alone. He's having chipped his thigh. He's having most probably some difficulties in his left leg, if I'm not wrong, because this is not his usual fluent, explosive stride. It's still the posture we used to have, but he does have, but this is not the dynamic movement I'm used to see from him. So something is going on, and most certainly he's in trouble. We don't know exactly what that is, but we have to stay focused, to keep an eye on him, whether it's gonna get worse or whether this is just a small phase where he has to gather up his strength and get back to the chase pack. But I am in doubt that he can recover from this gap. So there we go. Another. Yeah, there we had the first kilometer. The 16th was at 3:07. The first beyond 3 minutes, and the 17th was 2:58 again. And now the gap, which was at a high of 43 seconds ahead of world record pace, is now down to 27. Well, it's still, of course, impressive, but just 2 kilometers ago, they lost 16 seconds over to the last 2 kilometers. So it's now 4 kilometers to go to halftime, and I'm very, very curious what's gonna happen next. Maybe also Bekele was not in the shape, in the desired shape, to keep up with such a pace in these early stages. Maybe it was not set to be according to his race pace goals, and compared to his PR, maybe, of course, he has more potential than his actual PR at that time. I know his present PR, but he improved twice after that. But in this very race, he was beyond that thing. And here we have the 18th kilometer back, sub 3, 2:56. But I can already see it's no longer sub present world record pace. They have been there all the time. Now this means they're already deteriorating seriously, gradually, slowly, but most certainly. And it's a matter of time when they're going to lose contact to that world record. And then you're going to witness a big flash down the road, and we're gonna get worse and worse over the second half. But let's see how good is that finishing time gonna be, because they have made a great job, and in the past we've witnessed these kind of races where many athletes went out that fast and all of them fell short, but one maintained some of a good race, such as was the case in 2014, yes, when the 18-year-old broke the junior world record in 2:04:20 something, yes, 2:23 maybe, and he also was the only guy to keep up that fast pace of the first half. Now here we see Bekele again. Again, he's touching that left thigh. I think he's having serious struggle, and I don't think he has a good chance to finish this race safely, because they are pounding with a big pace ahead of him, and this is tormenting him doubly mentally, because he is a world record holder. He's a world champion. He's an Olympic champion. He's the champion of champions, and maybe he can not even afford to allow these guys trot in front of him, ahead of him, in packs, in almost a dozen runners ahead of him, when he again starts to struggle. So that would most certainly put an end to this race. Because if your mental is doing so, your body is collapsing, certainly and most certainly faster than expected. So you see the leading pack is, it's 9 runners. So I cannot see exactly whether he's in 10th position or whether there is yet another chase pack behind this pack, but he has a lot of guys ahead of him, and they're most certainly no longer in sight. I'm not sure whether they... No, I don't think that they're still in sight for him. Maybe only on the far horizon, and that's also mentally costing you a lot of effort and as we have already seen him pinch his left thigh. This puts another stress on that leg, and I don't think this is going to end up well. So the 19th kilometer, 2:57, again brilliant, but as you see, the world record splits started increasing and going faster, whereas this race is going slower and slower, just as I told you. But it's still very impressive up to this very point. If you haven't watched the start of this race, we would consider this to be a good point, a good situation, but it's definitely not. And here you have Bekele with another runner side by side. It looks like, but I don't think it's the Kenyan runner, the only Kenyan runner in this field. So I cannot see the name. However, let's see for how long he can maintain this pace, his very own pace into the race. Oh yeah, I can see. In Berlin, he ran that 2:03:03 where he scratched the world record. Yes, this has been already one of that improvement has already happened in 2016. I was wrong. I thought it was later. So he was having a 2:03 PR at the time. So he was already mentally up to the task. So yes, he was eyeing for this world record. So yes, now I know that this was set for him. This pace was set for him, so he was having a bad day. Not that he had the wrong strategy, because the entire field had the wrong strategy, but they went out too fast. And maybe he's not that kind of guy, unexperienced as these guys in front are. And I'm sure that he wasn't gonna fly this way if he would have had a normal day, but he certainly doesn't have, because the split, the gap to these guys wouldn't have been as big, even if he would have run his own pace and his own smart strategy in order to approach a 2:03. But these runners are crazy. They're still doing surges, as I'm seeing right here from the chopper. And how many are there? 8 runners. Yeah, surges, yes, I see, because of the water stations. They have been making surges. Well, very, very risky. Right here you can see Kipruto, the only Kenyan. Yeah, let's see. Mekonnen, Lema, Tola, all of them. Yep. And Bebev, 24 seconds. So yes, it's the second chase back or more that Bekele is in. And at 58:23, this is still sub-world record pace timings, but I'm curious how fast now the half marathon time is going to be, and we will see how long they can keep up this type of work over the second half. Is going to be very interesting to see where the leading women at. They are at 1 hour into the race. They're having lots of pacemakers, which is most certainly smarter and better organized than the men's race, because they are just acting like bees who have just lost their queen and just swarming around towards a big question mark, because that was certainly not supposed to be the ideal strategy of a race. And here in Dubai, they should have learned from the past, because 2017 they had enough races to look back to into the history of this marathon. So there's no excuse to that, not even in the coach's point of view. There is no excuse to them. They should have known better. It should have been more experienced, and should have judged the situation better. So there are many what can I call them, sub-elite runners, fast amateurs, casual runners who are packed into this lead pack of the women who are taking the chance not only to become televised, to be seen on television, but they also have the chance to be led through a great deal of pacers who are orchestrating the race to a set time, and they are doing a good job, and these guys know that they're in good hands if they manage to keep up with these women, in case their own personal records are within that range, because if not, they are doing the same mistake as our leading men are doing right now. And there you have the sun coming up at 1 hour and 2 minutes. Now the party's on, because the runners are gonna now face the new challenge. Now their body is gonna start to warm up to the point where they can feel the warming up, and that point is, as I told you a couple of minutes ago, is the point where you are gonna start slowing down, due to the fact, because when you realize that it's getting hot, it's already very hot and the body's already overheating, so you will have to not only mentally struggle but also physically make up to the set pace which you're trying to keep. Oh my god, there you have the first half, 101.33. So after they have been leading the race with a gap of 43 seconds ahead of world record pace, they are now even behind world record pace. The 2:02.57 is now out of sight at halftime already. So this is the precise forecast which I have been telling you, that they are now on 2:03.06 pace, which they will certainly not keep. But here you have Bekele's perspective. Oh my, wonderful view, but unfortunately from the back of a field. And here you see him with a guy whose name I couldn't see, the baby. Now I can see it. Yeah, so he is looking good. He seems to have recovered a little bit, but he's certainly not gonna get back into this chase back at the front, because they're light years away. And well, it was a nice appearance, but unfortunately Debele, yeah, unfortunately this guy is gonna have to make new plans, and I hope he's not suffering too much right now mentally, because that's gonna destroy his race even more and his finishing time. So I'm very curious to see whether he's gonna finish this race, because I know from the past many great runners did not finish a race where they didn't have any prospect of finishing in a good time or a good position. So they have smartly finished the race earlier in order to be able to race again anytime soon, another race, and in order to avoid an injury. So in retrospect, this is the right decision for many top athletes which have acted like as such. Even my running friend, the best Romanian marathoner of all times, as I call him, even though he's only the second fastest of all time, Marius Ionescu, he had some few DNFs in his career, but the way I looked at it a few years ago was that they are not trying good enough, too hard, and not feeling the spirit of the marathon, or they are not being real marathoners enthusiastic about the game. But in fact they are because they are elites, they are professionals, they have to think professionally, and if they want to earn a living and to stay alive and to race again as soon as possible, so they should drop out even before 30k or earlier in order to try again, avoid injury, avoid a worse injury than the present is already there, because at the point where you are in that shape and just dogging around there and not keeping up with the lead pack or your target pace, then there is a problem already in your body. So at that point you should take the right decision and opt to step out of that race. It would of course be the best decision even for the amateur runners, but 90% I think of the amateur runners, they will finish a race as long as they are capable of finishing that race, even if they have to jump on one leg and limp and crawl to the finish line. It's the spirit of the marathon, but also on top of that, you must admit it's the money. It's the money. They have a lot of they waste a lot of money on the entry fees, on the travel, on the airplanes. Oh my god, and that's why they are. There's no need to pity him, because he is a champion, a decorated champion, and he's to be respected. Most runners say he's the greatest, but it's very difficult to say who is the greatest runner of all, because we will always have new great runners and greater runners and greater runners. So he's maybe the best athlete of his time, most certainly. But in the marathon itself, he is not, or not yet, the greatest marathoner of all time. He is not the greatest marathoner, and that's something I can only stress, because he is not only not holding the world record, but he has not won a specific major race of significant meaning in this marathon. How can I call it, in this marathon world, such as Olympics or New York or Berlin, or Berlin. He won Berlin, yes, but that alone, of course, cannot make him the greatest, because we have many Berlin marathon runners. Even the first Berlin marathon champion had a 2:40 something, so that is not a standard by which he should be measured. But Olympics certainly are. Maybe there are also world championships. There are certainly world champions who never won the Olympic championship, such as Paula Radcliffe over the marathon distance. And for me, she is, up to this day, even though her world record has been broken after this race, she is for me the greatest athlete of the marathon distance ever, because with the shoe technology she has worn at the time, she ran faster times than anybody else in this world. And today, if she would have worn today's technology, her record would stand to this day. That I'm most certain of. So up to this time, I consider her the best athlete, elite woman athlete, marathoning, grande dame of marathoning. So Kipruto at 1:12:54, still a magnificent split in here for the marathon finishing time. But we are already now having only 3 athletes left. In fact, he's alone right on top. He's alone. These 3 athletes are the last athletes close by one another, and it's very hard to run the last 17 kilometers all alone without slowing down and struggling mentally. Only few can do, maybe very few, and maybe only one can do so, and that is, of course, the present actual GOAT of the marathon, Eliud Kipchoge. I can give the secret away that the present world record is at 2:01:39, which I've already said, and the fastest marathoner of all time, even though it was aided 1:59:40. It is Kipchoge. Even though he was helped a lot by the technology, but he's also the Olympic champion with the old technology and without a carbon fiber plate. So I would say yes, yes, it is Kipchoge. 1:16 into the race. Let's see what's next to happen. And there it is. Back to the race after a short break. Took a short break. Nice view from the chopper right there with the three guys leading the entire field, and the leading guy is now heading towards the final third of the race, still moving on strong. Now the two guys are closing the gap, as you can see beautifully from the sky view. They have closed the gap, and here's the final turn of this race, as there are only two turns in this entire race, 180 degrees or U-turns as they call it. Unfortunately, this course has these two U-turns, which is unnecessary for a race of this caliber. They could have easily avoided this type of U-turn and easily calculated the actual precise distance of 42.195 kilometers, but most directors don't do such things. But in Germany, for example, I can see many races which don't have a turn at all, and they are just starting at the point and finishing at the same point, such as Hanover, Hamburg, if I'm not wrong, Berlin, Frankfurt. These are examples for races which do not have multiple laps, and they do, as I explained a couple of minutes before, have the advantage of psychologically leading you positively through the race. And here we are, the leading women at 23K in 1:17:30. That's a great insane pace, as they have passed the halfway point in around 1:11. That is a very strong finishing time, and in case of a negative split, they will be able to run a brilliant time once again, as they mostly do every year here in Dubai, with times around 2:20, 2:19, 2:21. And if she can keep up the pace right here, I think she can just as well end up in the same zone of around 2:21, provided that she can keep up with that negative split. So here we have a chase back behind the leading woman. No, excuse me, I'm wrong. That was a lone woman they have shown before. This is the leading pack of the women, followed by Genemo, and they are still accompanied and escorted by a couple of men, which is perfectly, brilliantly good for these women, because they does have the advantage of being pulled right towards their goals, and don't have to do all the work on their own. And of course also the advantage of some blocking of the headwind, having a shield of the headwind. And this is mostly a good type of opportunity for women when they are being shielded by men, because they are usually taller, and thus they are providing a good pacing performance from two perspectives. Here we are back to the leading man with just less than 1/3 to go. 120 into the race, and still looking very good. They have closed the huge gap, but they still cannot build a single group, because the gap to the second man is still quite small. But now they have finally managed to form a tail and do some effective running, one shielding the other. The final three men left in the leading pack in the beautiful, marvelous city of Dubai, where I can still by now not see the scorching sun in their faces. As far as I'm concerned, this is lucky. They are lucky for not having already the sun in their faces, which usually at this time, at the latest, is already the case. Even though this is just, you might get it wrong that it's cool, but it's of course already pretty warmed up over there. But it's not as humid as I've been talking before. When the sun is coming up, I can even see a slight breeze of wind. So they are lucky by now, and even if the sun would start to come out right now, they have been still saved for most of the race, and that's the best conditions you can get here in Dubai. The other opportunity would be to have the race starting out even earlier, and well, having only the finishing time window of around 50 minutes at sunlight after the sun up. And I think for them that is not as marketable, because you want to see something, and they are already starting at dark, and for half an hour, 40 minutes it's in the dark. So I think that's all they can do, because they might harm the marketability of this race if it's all at dark. But if you really want to provide the athletes with the prospect of running a world record, you should reconsider that starting time, because in Mumbai they are also starting at 5:30, the elites at 7. I've been always wondering why they are doing so, but now I gave the answer to myself by saying that it's a marketing strategy. Of course it is. What else would it be? Because I cannot think of any situation where the amateurs have an advantage over the elites, as is the case in Mumbai. This only because they needed to be seen in the light, so those they have to struggle. But here in Dubai is special, because here they have a potential chase of running a world record. So here is the chasing group of those 3 leading guys, the chase back of another 3 men, also doing a tremendous job, but they are no longer providing us with those multiple splits they did before, because most certainly because they've realized, oh, I saw the 29th kilometer, because they realized that there is no longer a chance for them to approach the world record, and now they stopped just giving us every single split. But it's still very interesting. I think they will do so later, but it's still interesting how it evolves, how they are losing contact to that mark, and how far they are drifting apart to those target splits. Because as I initially mentioned, it's gonna be a slow second half compared to the first half after that firing first half where they just blasted around 252s and 254s and 256. That's world record pace all day long. They are now, of course, no longer in that world record pace, but they're still looking for a good finishing time, even though it's far, far away from a potential course record. Even that's impossible now. And this race, once again, shows you that if you are starting out too strong, so many elite and sub-elite athletes get it wrong, you cannot make up for that burst you do at the beginning, and you are losing ground like never before. So here's the gap. The gap, wow, incredible. I can see some other splits sub 3. There were another 257, 3. So the gap to that world record has once again happened to stay solid, constant, and it didn't drift too far away from that initial world record splits. But this is not the total gap, it's just a single kilometer gap, and well, we do have to wait to see the present total gap behind that world record. And here I remember this area I ran myself. It's an endless road. For me, astonishingly, it didn't feel as it's never gonna end. 30K, I felt okay all the way along, even though I have suffered tremendous blast beyond 30K up to the 38th kilometer. I almost had a blackout because I had taken too many, not only sugars, but it was caffeine and taurine, if I'm not wrong, but it was something else. Guarana, exactly. I've been receiving a sports powder by a Romanian sponsor for free, and I've been asked to test it for the race, and that was a slight mistake because I was having sugars myself, and it would have been enough. Wow, the last 5 kilometers and those before were very strong. 14:31 again, sub world record pace. The 14:45 is also very strong now. He's all alone for the last 12 kilometers, and well, it's gonna slow down a little bit, else I can think of anything else, because for now the splits are very strong, not far away from a world record, but it's gonna be a little bit warmer, and those who cannot keep up that target time, even though it's looking very strong. Kipruto just stepped out of the race. Looks as if he was a pacer. Made some nice money from that, but that's very sad for us not to see any Kenyans competing here. Oh, there you got the gap. Here's another gap. Wow. Wow, I was wrong. This is the total world record gap, 4 seconds behind. Last kilometer being 2:57. Yeah, that's it. That's when all the crazy work started out. When Kimetto also had a negative split over the second half, and the kilometers started rolling sub 3s, and this guy is now having difficulties to keep up, this Tola, to keep up the low sub 3, so this is low sub 250 somethings. And in order to perform a world record race pace, you have to stay close to those 250s constantly, because of the final period and stretch you are certainly gonna struggle and lose a couple of seconds. So you might need a small cushion, but not as big as they used to have over the first half, and especially over the first 15K or so. They had a gap of around 47 max ahead of the world record pace, and that's too much. Stretched out for a period of just a stretch of just 15 kilometers is too much. Maybe for an entire race, when you're just having 1 second per kilometer difference, it's okay. But if you're having 47 at 15, that's 3 seconds per kilometer ahead of the target pace, and that is way too fast. And it will show later even more, because now not only the heat will grow stronger, but also this guy is now all alone without the pack close, not even close to him. So he's now mentally starting to struggle, even though he's in a good condition now to run a fast time. But in the minute you are realizing that you're losing ground, and the gap to that world record pace starts to grow even just 1 or 2 seconds slower, your mind will start to work even stronger. And yeah, that will absolutely put another stress on your physical state, and it will make it even harder for you to just maintain the pace. Even though you are already behind world record pace, you will have difficulties maintaining it. Whereas on the other side, the women have the nice sweet advantage of still having a solid pack around them of 11 people. And yeah, all they have to do is to stay together and focus on keeping up the pace of these pacers who are doing a great job at maintaining an even pace. And for them, it's a lot easier to go through the entire distance at an even pace, which is always the best thing you can do. Even though I, as a coach, have been preached by some sub-elite athletes to go out hard, because you cannot make up for the slow start or the even target pace which you are eyeing at if you are trying to reach for a certain target time. But the guy I'm talking about, for example, he wanted to run a 225, and he started out at a pace of around 223, 224 finishing time, and in the end he got a result of 229.48 or something, and that is way above target, 4 minutes. And after the race, he was still convinced of having done the right thing. But it is never the right thing to go out too fast, because you will always pay for it. You can sometimes be in a better shape than expected, meaning that you are automatically rolling faster than expected, but you are still never in a position to improve more than 1, 2, or 3 minutes max, no matter your level, except if you're a beginner or an unexperienced amateur who has the potential of improving tenths of minutes. Okay, that's something different. But if you're an experienced marathoner with multiple PRs, then all you can do is to focus at your training results and dig closely around that target, that calculated marathon target pace and not a lot faster. If you're feeling a little bit better on race day, okay, you can go out for 1 or 2 seconds max sub your target pace. But if the guy who was looking for 3:20, 25, 26 was going out in 3:22, 23, 21s, it's too much. It's too much. It's too fast. So here we have the total gap behind the world record is 21 seconds. Now you can see how drastically it is drifting apart from that initial gap. It was 4 seconds, then it's 12, then it's 21. That's a lot. 8 seconds lost, 9 seconds lost. Even though the 32nd kilometer is in 3 minutes, which again shows you how strong Kimetto must have been at that point, meaning he ran 2:51. Wow, that's amazing. So he was in Eliud Kipchoge territory at that time, at that very moment during the race. Even though these guys are still doing a tremendous job, but in the end it's going to be just an average finishing time, which of course is great considering the circumstances, but reconsidering the initial pace, they might have done a lot better. So I'm sorry to say so, but you have to do a hell of a job in estimating your target marathon pace as good as possible when training. For that, you might need a great experienced coach, because most of the times the athletes themselves cannot estimate it precisely, and they most of the time overestimate themselves because they're euphorical and enthusiastic and all that stuff. I've been through all of that, but after a certain time I managed to work towards that negative split. And a negative split does not necessarily mean that you are just starting out too slow. No, it's just smart strategizing, and it is always the best way to finish a race. Of course, you can sometimes risk something, but only if it's worth it, and if there is no other choice. Just for example, for an potential Olympic marathoner who has to run a certain qualifying standard and he has only one chance, well, then he should go a little bit faster than possible, just to say it carefully, cautiously, because he knows that his chances aren't that high, but he's also in that moment very euphoric and enthusiastic, and he will, as in most cases, most of these guys did not make the Olympic qualification standard time. Most of those guys who entered the Olympic team were just entered by a B norm of the athletics organization, or their country allowed them to do so. And for this postponed Olympic Games in Tokyo, we're going to have a very difficult qualifying standard of 2:11:30, which almost no one can run in Europe. Very few guys can do so. Of course, there are 10 or 20 guys who do it on a regular basis, but that's way too little, because we always used to have 100 to 150 starters at Olympic Games. And if this rule is as strict as they claim it to be, then I don't see more than 50 to 80 athletes starting at the Olympic Games, because only 3 are allowed per country, and there are very few countries who will be able to provide 3 athletes sub 2:11:30, let alone countries that will not provide any athletes at all. For the women, it's a tiny little bit easier, the qualifying standard, but as I said, in those cases, you can risk it because you don't have a lot to lose. You can only win, but still, you have to be very careful because such a race, if you realize early enough that you cannot keep up with that target Olympic standard qualifying pace, you should just switch gears and eye for a good finishing time. Women have just passed 30K in 1:40:54. But as I said before, you might probably save a PR when not stubbornly eyeing for a qualifying standard. That's not possible to do. So unfortunately, I have to mention an example from my very own country, my native country, Romania. King of the marathon, Marius Ionescu, most probably soon to become 37 years old. Most probably is his last chance of qualifying for the Olympic Games for final time. He has been there 2 times, yes, in London and in Rio. But the qualifying standard of 2:11:30 is way beyond his PR and second fastest time in Romanian history of 2:13. And he hasn't run such a good time in many years, since 2015, and last year he ran a 2:18 if I'm not wrong. So instead of eyeing for a good finishing time of around, let's be realistic, 2:14 to 2:16, because I haven't seen him run another strong race in many years, a race that is supposed to reflect his PR. Well, here we got the man at 1:42:30 something, 34, 35K. He has slowed down, as I can see. I can also see it from his stride. It's no longer that fluent. It's no longer that smooth. It's no longer that dynamic. It can only get worse, but that's the way it is. So let's get back to Marius, who is supposed to run a 2:11:30 with a PR of 2:13, not ran in 6 years. And instead of eyeing a great time, which he hasn't run in 4 or 5 years, of around 2:15, as I said, 2:14 to 2:16, that might be realistic, he's going all in and risking things as Bekele did in 3 of his DNFs. If I'm not wrong, Marius also has 2 or 3 DNFs lately in his career. And that is very, very tough to cope with mentally, especially at that high age, because you know that your time has come to very soon finish. While Tola has a gap of 58 seconds ahead of Wasihun, which on the other hand of the advantage is a great disadvantage, because he's all alone and he's, no matter the distance, the gap he has, he's still feeling pressured and doesn't know how far he actually is away, and he's realizing that he's slowing down, and this is a mental struggle only marathoners who have led a race know. No matter what kind of a race it is, amateur, local, class, whatever, if you're leading a race and start to slow down, you're panicking, you're starting to think all the crazy things that they are gonna catch you. Of course, you're forgetting the fact that they're struggling just the same, and maybe even harder, because they are the ones who are 1 minute behind you, and they are slowing down, and they are just giving up. They have already given up on catching you. They're just trying to even the position, to keep hold the position, or looking for a podium finish, and that's all they are keeping in mind. The very few are hoping and dreaming of a miracle that the guy ahead of you is gonna crash and collapse and you can still win the race, but that's only the case in very few races. So you cannot run a race by hope. You can do so just for reasons of motivation, but not of realistic reasons of having prepared well, trained well, having had stats and numbers. Then you cannot and do not need to run with hope boosters. You need to run with now the knowledge and the belief of knowing that you are in a certain shape, and not of hoping. Hope is the wrong kind of approach in professional athletics. You are having the numbers. You know exactly where you're at. And when you know where you're at, you can kick it. Just as Gebre Selassie once said, Haile, the big man, he said, when you are at the starting line, you don't have to worry at all. All the work has been done. Now, all you need is just run, because the work has been done and you know you are prepared for this, and you should exactly know how good you have been preparing and how good you can run this very race. So, well, the marathon is an endless process of contemplation and tactics, and it's a thriller, a never-ending book, because a book usually ends if there is not a sequel, but this marathon is something that is hunting you long after it is finished and long before you're towing the start line. The race itself and the minutes before the race should be the only moments of a marathoner's career when they're feeling perfect, at ease. Of course, they're excited and nervous, but they should know, yeah, I'm here, I'm strong, I'm ready to kick it, to run this and that time. And all you do is you have to deliver, because if there is no negative miracle of an unexpected injury, you will deliver the expected results. Even though in marathoning is more often not the case of delivering the expected finishing time, because over the shorter distances you can easily calculate the estimated time of arrival, and the risk of an injury is a little bit decimated. Of course, also due to the fact that beyond 28K you are emptying all your glycogen stores and electrolytes need to be replenished, so the marathon is totally different. Whereas over the shorter distances, 21, 10K, 5K, you don't even need to drink under certain weather circumstances. Here we also have the wheelchair winner, Rafael Botello. Also a nice success for these athletes who are always being presented at the big races such as New York, London, and so on, Berlin. They do always do a great job, and they are lucky to have some nice prize money in here as well, because there are very few races where they can take part in a marathon. So the leader again, now at around 37K if I'm not wrong. I can see from his face that he is already looking down to the ground. That is also an indicator of well, maybe upcoming dizziness. We're trying to focus. You're trying to put your eyes on the road so as not to somehow fall dizzy when looking up to the horizon, to the sky, or just into the distance, just staring into nothing, where you don't see something in particular, which is making you dizzy. So as you can see, the sun has already come up, and even though it's not very strong, but you can see the shade, so you certainly know that this guy, even though he ran brilliant kilometers over the last stretch, I'm impressed with this guy. I'm very impressed. 300, 257, 256 under these circumstances, after that initial suicidal pace of 252 to 256 around. Yeah, let's be realistic. On average, it was around the 254's average. So he's now still maintaining a 3 minutes per K pace, but it looks totally different. He looks as if he struggles at 310 pace or slower. And if me myself can notice the difference on the body language, that it looks different. So this means that he's now already struggling at the limit with 4 kilometers left now, certainly no longer 5. It's going to be very tough piece of work over the last 4 kilometers to even maintain those splits of around 3, which translates into a 2:06:35, averaging 3. But he used to have most of the time splits of sub 3, except maybe 1 or 2 or 3 I've seen beyond 3. So theoretically, this is supposed to be a finishing time of around 2:06 low or 2:05 high, but we'll see whether he can keep that up, that 3-minute pace. As now we can also see that the women's field has already started to spread apart into with Demise. Oh, what a nice name, and though it has a negative touch, but it's a very beautiful name. Here in the back of Pacer Hassan. I think she's the following woman behind the leader. Yes, looks like that. Yes, because there we have the lead car, and the leading woman, seems to have 2 pacing guys ahead of her. So they also have a long way to go, the women, because at this very point you are wishing that the kilometer you are in is going to be the last, but sometimes it's 4 or 5 left. In this case it's 9, and in most marathon cases this finishing stretch feels like never ending. I only very rarely experienced the case where I was thinking, wow, just 8 left. Most of the time I was thinking, holy cow, how can I survive those final 8 kilometers? I think I only had 2 or 3 races where I was counting down those kilometers joyfully. So here we go, the final 3 kilometers, around 12 minutes ago. Yeah. Well, let's see what he can do. Tola, Tamirat Tola. 1:55 into the race, approaching the Burj Al Arab Hotel, meaning the final right-hand turn to the police headquarters, and then you are having a stretch of a around a 1 kilometer long finishing line. And that's a stretch everybody's looking forward to, because it is the stretch where you can already see the finishing area from the distance. And it's going to ease it up a little bit for you after taking that final right-hand turn, entering that finishing arena, as one can call it, because this finishing area hasn't changed ever since they have introduced this race, ever since they brought it into life. Now from the back, he's now again looking smooth, a little bit stronger than before. Yeah, now even from this perspective, the guy really looks stronger. He has caught up a little bit. He's managed to regather his strength and push it up a little bit for the final stretch of 2 to 2.5 kilometers. So we are very, very excited to see the finishing time after this chapter. His face very, very focused, still keeping the eyes on the ground, but no longer as obviously as it was the case during the 35th and the 38th kilometer, where he was slightly shaking his head, not Paula Radcliffe style, but those were other reasons in her case. He was simply struggling and tiny little bit exhausted. Women have just passed the 35k mark, with De Gefa in the lead, a small woman, following her pacer, who's doing a nice job, whereas the other guy who was running together with them seems not to have been a pacer, because he has just drifted away apart. He just disappeared into the distance. He's no longer staying with him. This means he's an individual runner and doesn't have anything to do with him. I would have even wondered why they are providing her with 2 pacers for one person. They are only providing 3 to 6 pacers for an entire field. So meaning you are never having multiple pacers alone for yourself, except as the legends who were eyeing for a world record in the past, such as Gebre Selassie, Kimetto, Kipsang, Mutai, Kipchoge, Bekele, and all that stuff. You know, that's when you put multiple pacers into the game, where you are just creating that wing, that bird-like wing, which is protecting and shielding the runners from both sides of the front, so they're not running the risk of even coming close to a headwind. So 1:57:33. Wow, I might have been very wrong about the finishing time, because 2:06 is now no problem according to the present splits. He should be easily running around a 2:04 something. So in fact, I have miscalculated I have totally miscalculated the finishing time, the estimated finishing time, because I was looking at a time of around around 2:06. But the splits they have put up at the beginning, those splits way sub 3, have provided them with such a huge gap that they are able to stay way sub 2:06:35. Now it's not only the 2:05, which I have been maybe expecting, but it's now even close to a sub 2:05, and that is And another amazing view from the helicopter over the Burj Al Arab, right onto that Palm Jumeirah. Great view. Very sad not to have had the opportunity to visit this hotel and have a look, but I was very close to it, and that's nice as well. So here we go, the final minutes, final meters ahead of taking that final turn right into that finishing area, which is stretching, I think, slightly over 1 kilometer. Or maybe 1 kilometer. I haven't paid close attention to the map and to the Google map while we are once again having a few impressions of the back of the hotel of the Madinat Jumeirah, which have also built something new which wasn't there in 2014. 41k at 2:00:39. Theoretically he can run at 2:04. So let's see and pray and hope that he will do so. This will bring him a nice finishing time in the all-time list of the Dubai Marathon, which again shows you, after having had so many great athletes with potential world record abilities, that the course record is not that special, because most certainly because of the weather. So he's now struggling, absolutely, but within this struggling face and expression, you can already see the glimpse of hope that it's soon, very soon over, and he's now eyeing forwards, which he hasn't done in 5 or 6 kilometers. Now for the first time he starts to look back. As I said, he wants to be sure that there is nobody behind. So this again shows that there are no coaches or athletes or other people who are helping you, aiding you, and telling you how far the gap is actually to the second. In a race as such, they should provide you with multiple charts on the side roads and all that stuff. With this technology, they should be able to tell you what's going on. This must be the case in the future. I'm sure there are races where it is the case, but it should be more transparent, such as in a stadium where you can see how far it is to the finishing line, or how close the gap is, how big, how small the gap is to the second placed runner, or as the second placed runner to the first placed runner. That is something which has to be improved in the future of the marathon, because it helps us tremendously, and it is not a physical aid, it's just a mental aid, and it's an acceptable aid, absolutely on the contrary of the shoes which are now being provided these days. So now let's get down to the final stretch. Tamirat Tola from Ethiopia with a 2:04:11. Wow, what a brilliant time, and I was totally wrong. He was way over a minute faster. Fantastic. He has kept that 3 minute per K pace, even slightly faster over the second half, in spite of having boosted out so fast over the first half. However, they had a 2:01:30, if I'm not wrong, and the second half is 2:02:40. Yeah, so you can see over 1 minute and 10 seconds slower over the second half. It's not a lot, so I pay my respect to this guy for only having lost 70 seconds over the second half after having run 70 kilometers on his own. But the reason for this luck he had is that the sun wasn't coming up earlier, so he was lucky not to have slow down even more. But he's certainly also very proud to have defeated Bekele, who didn't finish the race. And here we have the second place finisher, Wazihun, approaching the finish line in a time that is also gonna be, of course, sub 3 minutes per K pace, beyond 20 kilometers per hour, which is the most respectable time barrier and marathoning of the elites. So it's not the 3-hour marathon, which was in the early 1900s, and it's not the sub 2-hour marathon that is still not feasible under normal circumstances. For now, as I've always said, Kipchoge's time is not realistic for me in a regular race. And if we want to stay clean and regular and as correct as possible, the 2:06:35 is always a standard of excellence. Anything else would be wrong. So she's very close to that 2:06:35, sub 2:07. Yeah, let's pay him respect to us. This is a 3 minute per K pace. Just missed that 3:03. This is 3:00 flat by 12 seconds. But here you can see how hard it is to stay sub 3. So I've always said that I will not witness a sub 2 marathon under regular circumstances. I really hope to be wrong, but we have to wait in the future who is capable of doing it. Bekele is certainly one of the most brilliant athletes in history, but he's now too old to do this or even approach the standing world record again. Kipchoge, in my eyes, is also over the hump. This might sound shocking, but I don't think he can run another 2:03:39 under regular circumstances. Yeah, we will see now on April 11th in Hamburg whether he can do it or not. But thing is that, we have to wait a long time until somebody's going to run the sub 2 under regular circumstances. And here we have the third place finisher, Lema from Ethiopia, of course, with a time of 2:08, almost flat. And the fourth place runner, a runner I used to admire due to his Durag Hejiksa. I've been following this guy a long time, even at the time when I was there in 2014, always keeping an eye on him. He's a very, very good marathoner, and now he finished in 4th place, securing himself a nice prize money. Of course, all of these athletes are capable of running slightly faster times under better circumstances, but these guys... Oh, here's the only Kenyan guy. I was wrong. There was another pacer who was not listed in the starting field, if I'm not wrong. So it was the only guy who was listed. It has now finished in 6th position, if I'm not wrong, because I was not paying attention now due to the many blah blah talk of mine. Very happy, the guy, Tamir Tola. He's very well known, even at the time when I was there. 2014, his name could already be read in the pamphlet of the race director, which I am keeping all here in my back, in my trophy